Hello everyone. In this video I'm going to be showing you how to create a t-shirt design. This is going to be just a simple graphic. I saw an image on one of my other designs, and I thought, you know what, that would make a good concept for another design. And I'll just get right into it. What we need to do to set up this canvas that we're going to be working on is everything is going to be created based on a circle. So what I want to do is find the center of the canvas first. So to do that, I'm just going to drag out a guide from the ruler. So right up here at the top, if you start dragging out a line, these are guides. You drag a guide out here, and if you double click on that guide, you can set specifically where you want that to go on the x-axis and on the y-axis. And since we're coming down from the top, you can see the y-axis is highlighted. That's the one we're setting right now. My canvas is 1000 by 1000 pixels, so I'm going to set that to 500 and then hit the tab key. And I don't need to set anything else for this one, so I'm going to hit OK. So now we've found the center vertically, or by setting the guide on the y-axis to exactly half. We're going to do the same thing for the vertical line, and that's the x-axis, so I'm going to hover over that guide. It's kind of hard to get the cursor to change to the hand, but once it's changed to the hand, just double click on it and you'll get this box. And then you just type in half of whatever your canvas is. Mine is 1000, like I said, so I'm going to put in 500 and then hit OK. So now we have the center of this canvas. Now the end design is going to not only use circles, but we're also going to place some letters around the outside of the design. So the letters that we're going to place around the outside, there's going to be 10 of them, and so a circle is 360 degrees. If you divide that evenly by 10, you get 36 degrees. So we need to set up some other guides that actually are angled at a 36-degree interval. So there may be more than one way to do this, but this is the way that I do it. You just drag out another one of those guides, and when you double click on this one, you'll notice that there is an angle setting. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to, in 36-degree increments, I'm going to create 5 of these, and you'll see why I say 5 even though we need 10 as we get into this. So 36 degrees for the first one, so I hit OK. So there's our first one. Now I'm just going to drop it somewhere close to the center. We're going to center these all the way up here in a minute, but I'm going to drag out the next one, and 36 plus 36 is 72, so double click that and we'll put 72 in that one and we'll hit OK. So there's our second one. Now we have to do one at 108 degrees, so we'll drag another one out. 108 degrees is the angle, and we'll hit OK. So there's our next one. Next one up is 144 degrees, so we'll drag out a line and create a 144 degree guide. And we got one more. Actually, we don't have one more, because the next one, 144 plus 36 is 180. So we've got our guides that we need set up. Now this looks like it's off center, or it looks like it's not evenly incremented because of this vertical one right here that does not fall within the 36-degree intervals. This one we're going to use later on, and we needed it to be able to find the center. So that's why it looks like it's not an even interval. It really is, because if you take this one out, the rest of these are all even. So I'm going to hold down the control key and I'm going to zoom in, and you can see, even though it looked very, all those from out here, it looks like everything goes through the center, but if you zoom in close enough, you'll see that these are way off. I mean, it might not be way off relatively speaking, but technically they're not through the center. So I'm going to just line these up. And I want to get them all on that center point, just by dragging. Alright, now they're all going through the center. So we have our guides. Now, this design is, it's going to look, it looks, in my opinion, it looks very neat and very complex when it's finished, but designing it is really not that hard. It's really just all math, and it's not really just math, it's just consistency with the circles that you create. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to drag out a circle from the center, and I'm going to turn snapping on by going up here to the upper right hand corner and clicking the magnet. So I'm going to zoom in a little bit, and I'm just going to come up here. We're going to basically use concentric circles for this design, and the first one that we're going to do is going to be white. So I'm going to set my color, my fill color, to white. And incidentally, I want to come up here just before we get started on this, and I want to check the fill and stroke tab, and in the stroke style, yeah, it's set to 1, and I don't want that. I don't want a stroke on my circle. So let's drag out the circle here by holding down, just as we start to drag, hold down control. Actually, yeah, it did. It's hard to see it because I set it to white, but there it is. So we have a circle. I don't know if it's in the center. The stroke style is set to 0, so we're good. But let's go over here, and what I want to do is select the circle that I just created, and I want to make that, it looks like it's completely square, so I'm going to lock the aspect ratio by clicking that lock icon, and then I'm just going to set this to 25 pixels wide and 25 pixels high. So now we have our circle, and we can drag that, and since snapping is turned on, it should snap to the center. However, we have a bunch of stuff, bunch of guides that it tries to snap to when we do that. So it might just be easier to come up here to the align tool and click vertical and horizontal, and now it's centered. It's also the right size. It's 25 pixels by 25 pixels. And each of these concentric circles that we're going to create are going to increment up by 25. So each one is going to get 25 pixels bigger in width and height, or diameter, I guess you could say, depending on if you're thinking about the bounding box or the circle itself. So let's just change this back to, I'm going to leave it yellow for now because it's going to be hard to see where the white ones are and where the black ones are. Well, the black ones you'll be able to see, but the white ones, because they're the same color as the canvas, they could get lost. So I'm going to leave that yellow for now. Then we'll change them to white. Actually, we won't even change them to white. We'll just, the end design, what I want is I only want the black circles to exist. I want the rest to be negative space. So on a white background, it's going to look like they're white and black, but ultimately what we want to do is we want to create negative space by punching out or subtracting all of these yellow circles from the black ones. You'll see what I'm talking about as we get further into it, but for right now what we need to do is just Control D with this selected, hit Control D, and that created a duplicate. You can see it right up here. Now we'll turn that to black, and then we will push it down to the bottom of the stack. But before we do that, let's make it a little bit larger. So select the black one, which is on top, and come up here and change this to 50. And then hit Tab, and it will change the height. And now we're off center again, so we'll have to just come over here and center up that black circle, and then we'll push it to the back with this button right here. So now we have a what will be negative space in the middle ultimately, but we have a black circle underneath it that's 25 pixels larger than the negative space. So now we're going to duplicate that black one again by hitting Control and D, and you see it creates another one on the top of the stack. So we're going to just follow that same pattern. This one though, I don't want to go 25. I want to go a little bit larger. I think it's what we're trying to do is we're trying to make this an abstract representation of one of those old vinyl records. Now it's not gonna, we're not trying to draw a vinyl record. We just want to create a design that kind of resembles that without making it obvious that that's what it looks like. And if you remember, after you get the center, if you remember those old vinyl records, the center was very small. That's where you set it down on the turntable. But then there was a label space that was a little bit bigger than that inner ring. And that's what we're kind of going for here. So we want to make this one, instead of going 25 up, we want to go 50. We want to go twice as much. So from 50 to the next one up would be 75, but we're going to go to 100. And actually, we may have to change that. Let's see what it looks like. Let's go to 100. And then we will center it again. So we'll click, make sure that relative to page is set, otherwise it won't center correctly. So now this one, we're on a, let's see, we're on a, I probably should label these. This bottom one is the black circle. This one is the negative space, and I'm just going to put center on that so that there's no ambiguity. And then this one is this will be black 2, and we're going to push it to the back now that it's in the center. Actually, this is not black 2, this is negative 1. This will be negative space. It's the first one that's, actually it's the second one that's negative space. Maybe I should have called this one negative 1 and this one up here negative 2. You can't name two objects the exact same thing, so we'll have to change that one first and then come down here and change that one to -1. Alright, so this top one is going to be negative space ultimately. So let's push it to the back by coming up here and lower selection to the bottom button. We'll hit that. Okay, so we need to change its color. I'm going to just use this yellow again. This is going to look really, really, really loud until we get to the very end, so or close to the end. Okay, so the next one, we're going to go back to our 25-degree increments. And then after this one, we'll be able to tell whether or not we want to make this a little bit bigger. It may need to be bigger. Let's just try it a little larger. I'm going to go up to 125 instead of 100 and then recenter it by coming over to my Align and Distribute panel and then hitting these two buttons with the page selected as the relative point. Okay, so I think in the grand scheme of things that's going to look better because the proportions seem to be a little bit better for what we're trying to accomplish. So select that large yellow, and then I'm going to duplicate it, hitting Control and hitting the D key while I'm holding down Control, and then I'm going to make it 25 pixels larger, going back to our interval of 25 pixels here, and then we'll change its color to black, and then we'll center it up by coming up here and hitting center on both of those axes, and then we'll push it to the back with this button. And now we're back on track. Let's name that. This one is black 2. We only need to do 5. I want 10 concentric circles, and this will be 2. And we only need 10 total, so we need 5 of each. And let's see, this was black 1. Okay, so we got 3 more to go. Actually, yeah, 3 more to go for each color. So we'll take this black one, Control D, change it to yellow, scale it up 25 pixels, so 175, and then center it. It's basically the same thing over and over again, and then we'll push this to the back, and then we'll copy it. Actually, we need to rename that. See, it uses the name of the one that you copied, so we need to change that to -3, and we're going to copy this one and then rename it. So it's selected, so we'll hit Control D, change it to black, and then we'll push it to the bottom. You don't have to do it in the exact same order every time and then change, but we do need to do every one of these steps in each cycle of the process. You can see I'm not following the order that I was before. I'm just hitting all of the things that need to be done on each iteration. Okay, so we're at 3, 6. We got 2 more of each, so we'll duplicate this black layer by hitting Control and D, changing it to yellow, scaling it up 25 pixels, to 25, and then centering it and pushing it to the back, and then renaming it to -4. And again, Control D, change it to black, scale it up to 250, center it, push it to the bottom, and rename it. This is black 4. Last cycle. Actually, that may be, we could probably stop there. Let me see. No, we need another pair. So we will Control D, yellow, scale it to 275, center it, push it to the back, rename it -5. And the last one, Control D, it goes to black. Center it, push it to the back, and rename it. This one is black 5. Alright, so we have all of our circles. Now, like I said before, we're not trying to draw exactly a vinyl record. We want to create a design that kind of, and the design that we're going to end up with is going to, it's kind of a blend between this abstract vinyl record and also it's going to resemble also the icon that kind of represents sound waves leaving an origin point, and it's going to go in 2 different directions. It's going to go right and left. So we need to cut some wedges out of this current design. So what we need to do is this is where we're going to start using these angled guides. So what I want to do is I'm trying to decide if we should cut out, and actually we probably should because it's going to make it easier. Yeah, let's go ahead and cut these. Let's go ahead and cut these holes out with these yellow circles. So -5. This will be easier than trying to click on these when you're trying to get the right one. Is not as simple for me. It might be easier for you, but for me, I always have a hard time seeing which one I've selected. So that's why I put so much time into naming these when I was creating them, because now I know this is the black 5, which is at the back, and they go from smallest to greatest from top to bottom. So what I want to do is I want to start at the deepest level. And the reason for that is because we're going to be using the path tool to punch holes in these other ones. And if we start at the top, we're going to have, well, actually it might not matter at all, but at any rate, I think I just want to start down here at the bottom. And I'm going to select the -5 and the black 5. And since the -1 is on top of the black one, when we come up here to path and hit difference, it's going to remove everything that's different about those, or it's going to remove everything that's the same and keep what's different. So the difference leaves you with what is different from the two. And that means the black one is 25 pixels bigger than the yellow one. So we're going to have a 25 pixel wide ring left when we do this. The yellow one's going to go away. It's going to cancel out everything in the black ring that takes up the same space as the yellow one. And when we hit this, so they're both gone, and now we have the negative space. And that's why I named all of those negative, because ultimately, rather than have a white circle there, I wanted negative space. And the reason why is because if this design goes on a background that's colored, I kind of want that background color to show through. You could do it either way. If you wanted it to be white, you would leave the white circle. If you wanted it to be yellow, black and yellow, you would leave the yellow circles. I'm using negative space because I think it will make the design more flexible. It'll be able to go on more colors. There are cases where that's not necessarily the best way to do it because you're using black, and if you put it on a darker background, you may want those light colored, or you might want the circles that are the lighter color there because it retains the consistency of the design no matter what background you put it on. So you could do it a bunch of different ways. I'm just choosing to go with the negative space. So here we have -4 and black 4. So we'll select both of those. And one thing that I want to point out is this might trip you up like it does me. If you click on this yellow circle here and you want to select the black circle too, the way to do that is to hold down Shift when you click the black one. So now we've selected both of these over here, right? You can see that over here. Those two are selected. So that's how you do it if you're selecting multiple things on the canvas. But if you come over here and try that, you can click -4 and hold down the Shift key and hit black 4, and it works the same, but only if the two layers are next to each other. Watch what happens if I select black 5, or if I click on the canvas and nothing is selected. Watch what happens if I hit -1 and then I hold down the Shift key and hit black 4. You see what it did? It selected everything in between. Whereas selecting -1 and holding down the Control key and hitting black 4, it only selects those two. That could trip you up if you have paths that are separated by other paths and you get in the habit of using Shift and clicking two things on the canvas. So just keep that in mind, that there's a difference between the layers that you're selecting. If you use Shift, you're going to select everything in the range, but if you just want the two specifically, in this case you could use Shift here and it wouldn't change how it works because these two are next to each other. The range is just these two. But I try to stay in the habit of, if I'm over here in this panel selecting multiples, I use the Control key so I don't accidentally, and it still happens, I get in the habit of selecting with the Shift key over here on the canvas, and then I try to do it over here, and I end up performing an operation on every layer that's over here because I didn't use Control. So that's just kind of something to be aware of. It might, or it may or may not happen to you. It's just something that I noticed that happens to me. Back to the project at hand. We're going to do the same thing here. We're going to come up here and do path difference, and we get another negative result, or a result with negative space. So we'll just go through the rest of these pretty quick because two of them now we see that we see the pattern. We're just basically knocking out all of the yellow circles and leaving negative space. So, and then we'll leave the center. So path difference, boom. So now we're left with this. It looks kind of like a record, one of those old records. But we're not done. We want to cut some wedges out of this, and I think what I want to do is let's use a nice bright color. I'm tired of that yellow, so let's use green. We're just going to drag out a tall, skinny rectangle, and I'm going to make sure that I'm using it as an object here. and I want to set this width and height specifically, just because it makes it easier to, what we're going to do is we're going to put this on an angle, we're going to create a copy of it and put it exactly opposite of it, and because we're using these two rectangles on opposite sides of a symmetrical design, then I want them to be symmetrical too, so that if I have to resize them or make them taller or shorter, they both expand at the same rate. So what I'm going to do is select it, I'm going to unlock the aspect ratio, and I'm going to set the height to, let's say, let's do 180 high, and we'll do 10 pixels wide. And then once that is set how I want it, I'm going to lock that aspect ratio. So here we go. So snapping is turned on still. So if yours is turned off, if you turned it off for some reason, you could turn it back on if you're working along. If you're not working along, then it doesn't matter. But what we want to do is I want to use this rectangle to cut out, it's going to be one of the, it's going to actually, this one's actually going to be one we keep, but you'll see what I'm talking about. But just drag it over here if you're working along, drag it over here so that this center line is exactly in the middle of the rectangle, and you'll see the center point is right there. That's what that plus means. That's your center point, and that's what snapping helps with. It puts it lines everything up exactly right. So with that selected, I'm going to hold down shift, and I'm just going to hit my down arrow until that one gets, until it touches this inner ring right here. And we may even want to go down without holding shift, just go down until it's almost at the edge. So if we zoom out, this is what we have. We have a rectangle that's up here, and it's cutting right through. It's not actually, we're not going to use this one to cut. This one's going to actually stay, but what we want to do is select it right now and then hit Control D and then hold down shift and then go to the right one time. And then we want to select the original one again, hold down Control, hit the D key, and then hold down shift and hit left one space with your left arrow. So now we have 3 equally spaced lines that are basically going right through our abstract record. So what I want to do is I want to back these 2 outside ones up. I want to push them back so that they're not touching this middle one. And you'll see why when, well, actually we can leave those there because we're going to need those to be there in the end. But what we need to do is duplicate. Let's group all of these by selecting each one of them, and you can either select them here with shift and clicking on each one, or you can come over here and select them with control by clicking each one specifically, and then hit control, hold down control and hit the G key, and that will group them. So now we have this group of lines that we're going to use for, we're going to keep these. So what we want to do is come over here and lock these down so that we can't do anything to them. We want those right where they're at. But what we want to do is we want to make this into a wedge. So I'm going to copy this group of 3 by selecting them over here. Just click on this layer until it's selected, and then hold down control and hit D. So now we have a copy of those three, and we're going to have to unlock it, because when you copy a locked group, the copy is locked, and we want to do something to this copy. So I'm going to unlock it, and then I want to come over here and click the one we just made, which is the one on top. I want to click that and get its center point, and I want to drag that center point all the way down to the center of this design, and I want to put it right in the middle. And it's hard to get it right in the middle when you're zoomed that far out, so I'm going to zoom way in, as far as I can zoom in, then I'm going to put it right on the center. So now it's right on the center. This copy that we just made is exactly on the center. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab this little curved arrow up here. I'm going to hold down Control, and I'm just going to drag that all the way to the bottom. And now we have the exact same thing on bottom as we have on top. And we can lock this one too, because that's going to be a one that we keep. But what we need to do now is take a copy of both of these. And so select them both. You should have both of them selected. And if you select one and then hold down Control and select them both over here, you'll be sure to get both of them. While they're both selected, we want to hold down Control and hit D. And now we've created two more that are in the same exact place as that group. So let's turn off the visibility of the bottom group, because we're not going to need it for a while. So come over here to the bottom group, the group that's not selected right now, and just hit the eye icon, and that will make them invisible. You won't see anything change on the canvas, but if you turn these off, you'll see nothing is visible. But if we turn these back on, actually what we want is turn these back on. Now what we're going to do is we're going to use these to cut out these wedges. So, and we're all set up to do it. We've got the center point in the middle of the design, and we've got this object, which is a group, set. So let's copy that group, hit Control D, and now we have a copy. We need to unlock them though, because we're going to be moving them. So let's unlock the copy, and we might as well unlock the other ones as well. But we only want to move the top two. So select the top two and hold down Control and get that second one. And then we're going to just drag, because the center point's down here, both of these are going to rotate on that center point, which interestingly enough is the center of the group. It's not the center of either one of the individual objects. So let's just drag it a little bit until we get something that looks like that. And then we could even zoom in a little bit. And then we want to hit Control D, make another copy, and drag that one just a tiny bit. Okay, and then Control D and drag that one a tiny bit. Actually, we may have to go back the other direction, because what we want to do is we want this wedge, we want it to be even in both directions, and we also want it to be complete. And actually it's complete enough, because we're only going to use it to cut out an angle down here. So I'll tell you what, if you hit Control Z a few times and just back all the way up until we get here, let's take a little bit different approach on this. I need to go back one more time because I've got two there, so I'll back up until we have this. And I'm going to select both of these. Alright, so before we start copying them, let's set this bottom one to where we want it over here. So let's drag this over here so that the center is that gonna I think that'll work. I think that'll work. In fact, let's make it work. What I'm gonna do, because I think that might be a little, what I want is I want the wedge to line up with these two guides. And the way it is right now, we're lining the center one up, and that puts this over here. So let's just double click into this, and then click this left one, and just hit delete on your computer keyboard. And then do the same thing for the bottom, but we're going to do it the opposite. We're going to do this one over here. So double click inside that group and then click on that one and hit the delete key. And now you can click anywhere over here on the canvas, and you should be, or if you come over here and collapse these groups, you may not have to do that, but that's just how I do it. Whenever I get inside of a group to get back out, I collapse them. And then we want to select these two again like we were before. So now what we have is we have this one on this edge, and we have, hopefully this one's going to line up with this edge perfectly, but we'll see how that goes. So let's start our Control D and rotate cycle. Let's start that right here. So we'll hit Control and D, and then we will select, we'll just click on this to where we get our handles here, and we'll just drag this. Yeah, it looks like we're going to have to remove that other one too. So Control Z, and let's just go ahead and remove that other one just by, and actually you could just come over here and select it. You don't want to remove the one that's on that guide though, so make sure that you get the right one. So I'm going to click this one and I'm going to hit delete. And oh, we made a copy, so I need to back up some. Control Z and Control Shift Z will help you go back forward. So let's make sure we got, okay, this is right. This is what we want. I had a duplicate of each one of these and it was throwing me off. So let's go into this group, and we'll select that one and hit delete, and then we'll go into the other group and select that one and hit delete. So now we just have the two that are left, and this should be easier to work with here. So select both of those, click on it, and then just move it a little bit. We just want to go far enough. We need to duplicate them. So duplicate before you move them. Control D and then rotate. And turn the snapping off. If you're having the same thing happen that I'm getting, turn the snapping off and just drag it a little bit like that. And then Control D, drag a little bit. We're basically making a wedge. Control D, move a little bit. And if you want to speed things up, you can duplicate the whole group and rotate it. So everything here, if you come over here, this is where you'll want to hold shift down because you want the whole group. If you want to group that like that just by hitting Control G, that simplifies your layers over here, and then it makes this go a little bit quicker. So we'll Control D, duplicate that whole group, click on it to get our rotation handles, and then now we're making more progress. Control D to duplicate, drag it until you see white space, and then back it up a little bit. Control D, duplicate, and we'll just come out here until we've got about the same space. It doesn't have to be perfect. I know up to this point we've been using exact measurements, and you could go about this in a way that does allow you to not have to eyeball it, but we're not going to do that. So what I want to do now is I want to select all of this, and I want to make this into one thing, one complete one single path. So I'm gonna, with all of that selected, and we need to make sure all of it's selected. Right now we don't have all of it. So select that top group and then hold down Shift and hit that bottom group, and now we have the whole, both wedges selected. And if we will come up here and go to Path and click Union, watch what happens over here in the panel when I hit Union. Nothing happened. Let's try Combine. We may have to take them out of the groups. Combine works. So it turned them into one large object, and it made all of the groups an individual. I don't like the way that did that. Let me see if I can get those all into one. Apparently they've got to be, actually it still might work, so I'm not going to get sidetracked trying to, I don't normally use combine. I usually take them out of the group before I try to combine them into a single thing, but let's see if this works. So what's underneath that? Oh, nothing. Huh. So we can probably just delete all those. We don't want to delete these two down here, but we can delete all these. That left a bunch of empty. When it did combine them into one thing, but it left a bunch of empty layers. So I'm going to delete that and then turn this back on. Alright, so it did what I wanted it to do, and we're not gonna have it in the end anyway. These green wedges are gonna go away here in a minute, so it's not even gonna matter. If you hold down Control and drag out, and hold down Control and Shift so that you maintain your center point, we want to drag these out until this end of the green is no longer touching that circle, because we want to keep this circle. And what we're going to do is we're going to use this green path to knock out all of these. We're cutting a wedge into this black record, and we're about ready to do it. So first though, what we want to do to keep us from having to punch out each one of these circles individually, we want to make these three rings right here, we want to make them into one object. So to do that, we need to select all three of them. So I'm going to come over here and click on black 5, hold down Control, hit black 4, hold down Control, and click black 3. And then I'm going to come over here to the Path tool, and I'm going to click Union. And that makes all three of those into one object. And that means, since they're all the same object, when we do the difference on them, it's going to remove all of everything that's overlapping from the green. So hold down your shift key and click on the green, and you should have something that looks like that. And then come up here to path and do difference. Yeah, that's what I was afraid of. We're going to have to move all of these. We're going to have to move this outside of all those layers. So drag that out to where it's not in a layer. And then you can just, if you want to test and see, yeah, there's nothing in this now, so just hit delete and get rid of it. So now we should be able to select this rectangle and control click on the black 5, and then come up here and do path and difference, and it'll cut out that wedge that I've been talking about up to this point. We had a hard time getting there, but we did get there. That's one of the things that I said originally when I started this channel was I'm not going to script everything and go through it and make it come out perfect. I want you to experience what it's really like working with something when you're trying to build something that you have in your mind and you're trying to use software to do it. You run into things like this. Your work and trying to explain it as you're doing it slows down too, because I'm trying to remember to tell you everything I'm doing. So this is what we ultimately want. So let's go back. You remember our green ones that we turned off so we couldn't see? Let's turn those back on now and see what we got. That's what I wanted. So let's enable those. We'll unlock them, and then we're going to turn them black. So let's just select each of these groups and then come up to the, actually you can just come down here to the bottom and hit the black swatch, and it'll turn them black. So we're almost done with the abstract part. What we want to do now is we want to turn these two groups of vertical lines, we want to combine them with this inner ring so they're not separate anymore. So let's hold down the control key, or the shift key actually, since we're on the canvas. Control clicking on the canvas won't work. It won't let you multi-select. You have to hold down the shift key if you're on the canvas. So hold down shift and click that ring, and now we have all of that selected. We can come up here to path and union, and because it's in a group, it's not going to let us do that. So just like we had to do a minute ago, let's come over here and click on, let's do these bottom 3 first. We'll click on all 3 of those while we hold down control, and then we'll create a union between those 3, and now they're all one item. And we'll do the same thing with these. Control click each one of those, come over here to path, union, and then we're going to drag these up and out of that group because it seems like I'm having problems doing the combining, and the path tools aren't working for me anyway while those are in a group. So I'm going to delete those 2 layers, and then I'm going to select these and select this circle, and we're going to come up here. Actually, I need to select all 3 of them, and then I'm going to come up here and go to path, union, and now it works. Alright, we're almost done. One more thing I want to do is I want these to stop where this circle would be. So to do that, we're going to have to duplicate this, Control D, and then once you get it duplicated, click on it on part of the pixels that are there, and then just drag this 180 degrees. And then what I want to do is select when you duplicate something, it puts the duplicate on the top of the stack, which is nice if you're doing things like what we're doing here. So the problem is, I don't know which one of these is the vertical line. So I'm going to come over here and hold down Shift and click on that. And now I have black 2, which is the vertical lines, and black 5, which is this circle that has part of it overlapping. So I'm going to punch out path, difference, and we're left with all of these pieces. Oh, and actually, you know what? We need to back up because that didn't work like I had it working in my mind. So Control Z until we go back to here. Let's do this. Let's do this. The way we need to do this is not the way I had in my mind at first. Let's create another circle, and we'll start from the center. And we'll hold down Control and Shift while we drag this circle out. We want to drag it out until it gets right to the edge of that other one. And then stop. And I'm going to change the color of it. It looks like it's not exactly lined up, so let's line it up with the page. And it's still a little small, so I'm going to change the opacity on that circle by clicking the fill and stroke, and then come over here to fill, and I'm just going to drop this down to where I can see through it. And then come over here to your select tool and then scale this up. Again, we're holding down the Shift and the Control key. And now we have the yellow. We have the red circle over the black graphic. So what we want to do is we want to keep everything inside of the red, and we want to get rid of everything outside the red. That's what went wrong a minute ago. I forgot that we used negative space on these, and so it created like a waffle pattern in here, and I didn't want that. You may have wanted to keep that in your design, but that's not what I want for this one. I want these lines to come up here and stop right where this circle would have been. So I'm going to hold down Control and select. Actually, I should have held down Shift because I was on the canvas. So select the red circle, which is path, in my version it's path 88. And then hold down Shift and click the vertical lines, and then come up here and go to path, not difference, we want an intersection. Everywhere these two objects intersect, that's what we want to keep. So we're going to hit intersection, and we have the graphic part of the ultimate design. This is basically what I was after. And you can see there's a couple of different things here. If you look at just this part, it looks like sound waves emitting from the center point. And the same thing with this. It looks like sound waves going out this way. But it also still kind of looks like one of those old vinyl records too. So it's kind of got a double feel there. And the other thing that we're going to do is we're going to put letters around the outside of this that kind of ties it all together. And what we're going to do is we're going to use Orbitron, the Orbitron font, to do that with. So I'm going to come up here. I selected the text tool by clicking on the A, and then I'm going to come up here and I'm not even going to scroll to it because I know the name of it. It's Orbitron. And if you don't have these fonts, if you want to get some additional fonts, some various styled fonts for your machine, you can check out a video that I did that shows how to get fonts from Google Fonts and install them on your computer to use for your designs. So I'm just going to use Orbitron. I'm going to come down here. I'm going to type out the word that we're going to wrap around the outside of the. We're not really going to wrap it around. You can wrap text around circles, but I don't want it to read like that. I want it to be a little more vague. I want people to have to look at the design for a minute to figure out what it says. So we're going to do it a little differently. I'm going to hold down the shift key and type out the word audio file. And it's still in red because that's the last color that we used, and I want it to be black. So I'm going to, number 1, change it to black, and number 2, I'm going to go turn up the opacity, because I set the opacity down to a lower opacity so that we could see through that red. But if you come up here to the fill and stroke menu, or tab, I call it a tab, it might be called a menu, and then just ramp up this alpha channel, that will make it completely opaque. So this is a little bit, well, actually it might be fine. Is it? Yeah, we're using the bold version. So if yours says normal, it's going to look like that, and we want it to be bold. And the bold version is closer to this than the thin version. Now here's something that after you've worked with Inkscape for a while, you kind of get the feel of this, but at the beginning it might not feel, you might not notice it. So I'm going to explain it. Right now, there's a couple of things actually. Right now there is a text object here. You can see that by clicking on A, and then you can come in here and edit this text. But I want to turn it into a path. I want this to become an object that's not text. I want it to be a drawing, for lack of a better word. So I'm going to come up here to object, well actually path, and click object to path. And now it's no longer text. Now if we click it, it's still an object, but it's not the same kind of object. If we double click it, look at what we get. We don't get a text field. We get individual points. This is a path now. And if we click on it, we can see all these individual points. Well, what I want to do is I want to pull these letters out and make them their own object. And I think there's a way to do that. Let's see if ungrouping it. Yeah, ungrouping it doesn't do it. There's a way to do it. I never use that way because it's always hard for me to go find, and I don't use this. I'm pretty sure there's a way you can split all these up into individual items, but we're going to do it the way I normally do it because it's easier to remember, for me anyway. With all of these points selected, I'm just going to drag out the ones I want to keep, and I'm going to hit Control X, and then I'm going to switch to away from the node tool that we're using right now, and I want to go back to the selector tool and click that, and then I'm going to point to where I want that letter to go. Right? I want it to go right here. I don't know if it'll do it with the hand or not, but I'm going to hit Control V to paste. And see, it pastes it right where you're pointing. And then I want to take the same approach, so we need to go back to the node tool, which is, you see the hotkey is N. So I'm going to come down here and hit the N key on my keyboard, and then drag out the next letter and hit Control X to cut it out. And then I'm going to hit the S key, which is the shortcut for the selector tool, as you can see there. I'm going to hit the S key, and then I'm going to come up here and point to this region, and I'm going to hit Control V, and I'm going to put the U there. And then I'm going to come down here and hit the N key to go back to the node tool and click on it so I can see the points. Drag out the points I want to keep. Control X, go to the S tool, the selector tool, and then point to where I want it to go and hit Control V. And then I want to do the same thing. I'm going to stop telling you what I'm doing because it's the same exact thing. Control X, S, Control V. And I need to move this because it's going to be in the way. So I'm going to just continue this until we get all the way around. And then we'll line up the letters a little bit better because they're not really lined up perfectly. But this is in my opinion, now when we get down here, just like we did up here at the top, this center line kind of makes it feel like this is not going to be in the right region, but it is if we just put it right on there and hit Control V. Almost finished. You don't have to do the E because it's already by itself. So we'll just kind of line these up a little bit better, and we'll get them as kind of want them to go around the outside of this. This kind of adds to the feel of the, you know, the record rotating. If you have to read it in a circle, it kind of feels like you're going around. You're going in circles while you read it, which is kind of what the record does when it's on the turntable. So that's kind of why, rather than wrap it around, wrapping it would do the same thing. But like I said before, I don't want it to be obvious what it says. So this A is a little too high, I think. Alright, so what we're going to do is we're going to do some alignment on this, and there's probably easier ways to do this, but I'm going to just hold down Shift and select the A and the P, and I'm going to center them with the, not first selected, but with the page, right? And I want to hit the center. See how now they're both center with the page. And I could drag out a rectangle here that would measure exactly the distance between these two, and then move it down here and put the P the same distance away, but I'm not going to. I'm just going to eye it up. Should have done that before I did the vertical alignment. So now I'm going to have to do that again. Okay, so that's that. Let's which one do we want to use for the base? So we'll use the E. We'll put the E where it looks like it's right in the middle. And then with it selected, we'll come over here and change this to, actually you can't have it selected, you got to unselect it, and then choose first or last selected. We want it to be the first selected. So we'll select it first because that's the one we want to align to, and then we'll hold down Shift and select the U, and then we'll center these on the horizontal axis by clicking this button, and now the U comes down to where the E was. It's still a little bit too far to the right. See how it's closer to this guide than it is that one? So I'm going to drag it over while I hold down the, I can't remember if it's the Control or the Shift key, to keep it on its horizontal axis. But now we've got these three letters lined up right. Let's get the L. Actually, I think I want to use the D as the one that we're going to center off of, or align off of. And then the L, it's a little bit rounder. it's got a top on it, and the L doesn't have a top, so it's hard to see exactly where the center would be, or where the top would be. It looks like it's farther away than that, but so we're going to use the D as the anchor, and then we're going to hold down shift and click the L, and we're going to horizontally center those, and now they're on the same plane. And then let's see, this eye, the eyes are skinnier, so you get the idea. We're just lining these up so that they look like they're evenly spaced around the outside. And we'll move this one in here. And just to get them on the same horizontal line, we'll just click that. Now these down here, and actually we could have done, let's do that with the eyes. I think they'll look a little bit better. If we line them up vertically with the D and the L, they'll probably look a little better. So I'm going to select that one, hold down shift, go to the center, do the same thing over here. And then we're going to do these the H and the O, we're going to do those with the E and the U. So we're just lining them up, and see how they kind of fall right into their natural place when you do it that way. This H might be a little bit too far away from the circle, but we can move that in a minute. And we need to, actually we'll do it right now. The O looks like it's fine, so we'll select it first, and then we'll move the H up to where it is just by clicking that. And now we have our finished design. So we'll group all this together by holding down Control and hitting G. And let's get rid of our guides. Let's see if, I think you can clear them all. Instead of delete all guides, if you go to the edit menu, delete all guides, we'll get rid of all of them. And now we have our design. And this is all vector, so I could blow this up to the size of a billboard or the size of a building, and it will be crisp because we drew it in Inkscape. And if I zoom in here, look at how nice and straight that line is. No pixelation with vector graphics. That's one of the it's probably the best thing about them, but there are a lot of advantages to vector graphics, SVG files. But that's the design that I wanted to create with you today. I'm sorry it took so long for me to explain it, but like I said before, I want to give you the real experience. I could edit this all up and make it look like it goes real smooth, but that's not what it's like when you're actually designing stuff. You design it, you kind of get a feel for it, and you feel your way through it as you're designing it, and you end up with something that is closely tied to the feelings of the person that designed it, and so it brings out emotions in the people that look at it. So that's the design I wanted to share with you today. I hope you picked up some things about using Inkscape as I was working through that, and some of the common things that may happen as you're working on things and making your own designs. But I hope that helps. Thanks for watching. I appreciate it.